Are you tired of being stuck under 1000 elo? Well, today I'm going to show you the ultimate guide to finally reach your peak rating. And I promise you that if you watch the entirety of this video, you're never going to drop below this again. Because I'm going to show you the 5 principles that you need to know, and after that we're going to put them to the test in a few games to show you that it really works. Let's get started. The biggest mistake that occurs between this elo range 500 and 1000 is that people hang their pieces. Aren't you tired of losing your pieces? Well, the easiest solution to that, and the good part is that it doesn't take that long to fix, is to ask yourself between every single move, can my opponent capture this piece when I move it? So before you make a move, ask yourself, is there a way for my opponent to capture it or not? That way you're going to stop hanging your pieces. To demonstrate this, you need to think on every move whether your opponent can capture a piece or not. Here, I'm seeing, okay, my knight is not being attacked by anything. There is literally no piece to attack my knight, okay. But now my knight is being attacked. Is it being defended? Yes. Do I want my queen in the center? Maybe. Okay, so I'm just going to develop. If he wants to take, I'm going to take back. There is no problem. Now I will develop my bishop. I want to attack the queen. But wait, my bishop is undefended. The opponent can just take the piece, and we do not want that. What happens if we attack it? He's just going to take, right? So here my opponent did not think about it, okay? But obviously he could have just took it, and he would have been way better. So after every single move, I'm looking, okay, is my bishop being attacked by anything? Okay, the knight is not attacking it. That's perfectly fine to develop the piece. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to castle here, for example, and after that, we can look for another example. But the same goes for pawns. So I want to attack the knight. I would love to kick him away and make him go over here. But if I push, he's able to take it. That makes no sense. The pawn is not being defended by anything. And this is going to be your thought process for literally every single move. And the more you do it, the more you're going to do it subconsciously, and that way you're going to be able to improve right away. Now the second thing that you need to train are basic patterns. I'm not talking about fancy tactics that grandmasters use for their training. I'm talking about 4 basic patterns that you are going to need most in your chess games. So let's get started with the first one. Now our first pattern is the skewer. The skewer is where you attack a higher value piece and it has to move out of the way, and after that you're going to capture the lower value piece. In this example, the king is higher value than the queen. You're going to attack it with check, it has to move out of the way, and you're going to capture the queen. For our second example, we are going to attack the queen, it has to move out of the way, and then we're going to take the bishop. We attack the queen, they give a check, it doesn't matter, we're just going to take, and then we're going to take the bishop, and we've won the game. Now the last skewer is a little bit more difficult. We're going to attack the queen, and yes, they could normally take, but here they're pinned, so they cannot do that. So what we're going to do is go here, they take our queen, we first take with check, and after that we're going to take and win the piece and win the game. Our second pattern is going to be the fork. In this example, we can see that with the knight we can give a check and fork the king and the queen. But here we have a bishop. Remember the last step? Can our pieces get captured? Here, the bishop could capture our knight. So first, we need to sacrifice the queen. And after that, we're going to deliver a fork on the king and the queen. We're going to take and we win the game. Lower rated opponents are going to struggle to see forks with knights. That's why they are the most powerful piece with forks. Over here we can see we can fork the king and the rook at the same time, and then after that we're going to capture and we're going to have an advantage once again. Now the knight is not the only piece that can deliver a fork. In fact, every piece can deliver one. In this example, it's the queen. Can you see the fork? Make sure to pause the video and try to find it. Okay, so in this example you can see it's the queen giving a check, and after that you can pick up the knight safely and you're going to be good to go. And here you're going to think, okay, after they capture they're going to take one of these 2 pieces, right? Well, now we have our next motive. Motive number 3, the pin. Now in this example over here, as we've continued from the last puzzle, they're attacking both pieces at the same time. But we have a very powerful counterattack, and it's rook to g1. The queen now cannot move out of the way because it's going to reveal a check, and that is not allowed. So in this example, it's a pin to the king. The queen has to take, and you're already winning. Now the pin can be used in multiple ways to get a win. In this example, it's again a pin to the king, and what you're going to do is you're going to deliver a check with the knight. They cannot take it because it was pinned. And now after they move, you have to first take the queen, and after that you're going to take the rook in the corner. For our last example, we're going to use the pin to the king once again, and in this example we are going to move the rook over here, threatening to take the rook, and then promote to a queen. The knight would normally be able to capture the rook, but now it's pinned to the king by the bishop. So now after we move up, they have to move, and now we just take the rook, and the next move we're going to promote. Now these tactics all go hand in hand with each other. So for example, you're going to take this over here, and they force to take, and now what you're going to do is, you see this pawn is pinned, so you can now use the fork and get a material advantage like that. This is an easy way to already have an advantage and win the game. Our last pattern is the discovered attack. Now for our discovered attack, we are moving a piece that is blocking the attack of another piece. In this example, we would like to capture that rook over there, but the rook is also defended by the bishop. We can remove the defender of the bishop with check, the king has to move, and then we can take the rook, and we can take the other rook, and we're completely fine, have an advantage. Now we can also use discovered attacks to create completely new attacks. You can see that we can then give a check, and then we can attack an unprotected piece. For example, with the rook over here, we're going to take, after they move, we take the unprotected piece. For our next discovered attack, we can see that we could actually capture the queen if we take up here first. The rook has to take, and now we can give a check with the bishop, discovered attack on the queen, capture the queen, and we are at the big advantage. Now in order to train this consistently, what I want you to do is to go to leechess.org, then you go to puzzle themes, and then you can see you have all these different puzzle themes under which the fork, the pin, the skewer, discovered attack, everything. And you also have many other motives that help you win the game. So what is very important is that you train these consistently. What I want you to do is train 15 to 20 tactics a day, but do it consistently. Not more necessarily, because that is going to overload your brain, and we do not want to fatigue our brain on that, because there are also other aspects. But this is a very important training metric that you can use that is going to advance your game right away. Now, if you're below 1,000, I do not want you to concern yourself with learning long openings. What I want you to do instead is focus on these opening principles. The first opening principle that I want you to focus on is occupying the center. Very important, okay? Let's say you play e4, but this also works with d4, it doesn't really matter. You play e4, let's say your opponent plays e5, you can see you're both occupying the center. If your opponent chooses a more passive setup, this is the chance to grab a second pawn in the center, and that is going to allow you to develop your pieces more freely. You see black is now struggling to develop the pieces because they haven't taken space in the center, and now they also have less space to develop the pieces. Which brings me to my second principle, is developing the pieces correctly, okay? What I want you to do is keep it simple, develop your pieces. I don't want you to memorize long openings like the Ruy Lopez or the Queen's Gambit or whatever. What I want you to do instead is, first of all, if you're below 1,000, just develop your pieces correctly, and then slowly bring everything out. Let's say the opponent brings the bishop out, you bring your bishop out, or you could also take in the center in this specific scenario, but this is more of a tactic. But let's say you just bring your pieces out, the opponent also brings their pieces out, and this now brings me to my third principle, castling your king to safety. Before starting any attack, you should care about your king safety. King safety is one of the most important metrics to win in chess, because if your king isn't safe, it's open for attack, okay? And your opponents are going to often hesitate on doing this. And what you need to do is you need to first castle your king to safety. That allows you to bring another rook into the game, which is going to help your attack even further later on. And after that, you can develop the last piece in this example. But let's say you would have developed the bishop first and then castle your king to safety. That is also not a bad move. But also in the opening, it's important to not hang your pieces and to look for tactics, as I've said before. That's why I've put them before this one. Now, the next rule that I want you to abide by is thinking. Let me explain. The reason I'm saying think is because lower rated players tend to move on autopilot. They have had a plan in mind and they just continue with the plan after their opponent moved without doing anything. And I'd like to demonstrate that with a simple example. This is a game I've had against a lower rated opponent, and you can see over here I have took control of the center like I've told you before. After that I decided to take and then develop my bishop. I slowly developed all my pieces, developed my knight, placed everything on a good square, and then castled my king to safety before starting any attack. Now you can see over here I am threatening this pawn, but it is completely defended by two pieces. But obviously the opponent also wants to bring the king to safety, right? But he just castled, but now this allows me to take over here. And the reason I'm saying think is because I want you to abide one simple rule. And that is to take 10 or 20 seconds to think, what is my opponent trying to do? Do I have any tactics? Is my king safe? Have I developed every piece? And these are very important. Take between every single move a few seconds to think about your next plans, okay? Do not just make moves on autopilot, because my opponent here castled in 1 second. 1 second. You have a bunch of minutes in chess to think, and you take 1 second to castle and instantly lose your pawn. Just take a think, okay? I want you to take 10 or 20 seconds before you make a move, and in those seconds I want you to abide all the other principles that we have talked about. Because now my opponent left the pawn hanging, which was our first rule, And now after they pushed over here, I decided to take. I brought my rook over. Then after a few maneuvers, we went over here. And then I decided to push. And my opponent in 2 seconds blundered his knight. And then I took, he resigned the game, and I came out victorious. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why it's very important to take a think before every single move. Chess is a game of thinking, it's not a sprint, okay? The next thing that I want you to do is reviewing your games. Now for reviewing your games, you don't necessarily need the chess engine. Instead, you could just take a break really quickly, have a look at where you went wrong, if you hung a piece, analyze why you did so and what you missed, and that is oftentimes enough. But chess engines and softwares can be a very good help. And you can either use chess.com chess review, which gives very good insights and also has very flashy brilliance and stuff like that, which is very interesting, but I understand not everyone can afford that. So instead I'm going to show you another software that is completely free. So welcome to Chessline. Chessline is first and foremost a tool to study openings. You're going to be able to go over here, study your openings, but for this video I've told you to not focus that much on openings. That is something for another video. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to hit games, and after we have linked our account here on the top right, what we're going to do is we're going to hit review on a game. And we can see, now we can hit pause and analyze the position. We can slowly have a look at what was good and what was not good, and we can see this was a relatively good game. We have pushed, the bishop went over here, the knight went over there, we captured the bishop, and after that we can also see what we done wrong, okay? Rook to e1, for example, here, it's an inaccuracy. Then we hit analyze over here, and we have the coach, the Chessline coach over here. And we can ask the coach, why was rook to e1 an inaccuracy? And then the engine is going to sit here, analyze the position, have a look at what was done wrong, and then it's going to give you an explanation of what you should have done better instead as well. So that way you can understand the positions, see where you've gone wrong, and now you can improve your chess the best way. And now we have gotten the explanation. The engine says the best move was f takes e5. The move rook to e1 is inaccurate because it allows black to play f takes e5, opening the f file for black's rook while leaving white's pieces poorly coordinated to deal with the pressure. And you can see over here the idea that after you move the rook, this file is now open. Now after we've gotten the explanation, I wrote to the engine what I should have done instead, and now it's going to analyze the position, explain to me what I should have done instead, and then I can understand the position way better. And now we have gotten the explanation. Alternative plan for white b3. Another solid alternative was b3, preparing to solidify the queenside and develop the remaining pieces before resolving the tension in the center. This would have kept the evil around 0.0. So in order to be equal in this position, I should have played b3 in order to solidify the queenside, and now I have gotten my understanding. I know what to do next time. Isn't this the best tool for chess analysis and chess training? If you also want to try out Chessline, you can go on Google and just type chessline.io, or you can go in the App Store or Google Play and download Chessline right away. Now let's get into the games. This is the real educational stuff. Alright, let's get into our first game, Road to 1000. Our opponent is rated 1727, and we are just going to follow the principles that we have said. We are going to occupy the center, and you can already see the opponent is not following the principle that I have said to you. Develop all your pieces, occupy the center. They have occupied the center successfully with the move d4, but now just start pushing pawns without any real reason. So we're just going to continue development, and at some point they're going to have to start to play a proper opening. Otherwise we're going to completely take over the game, okay? Let's just consolidate over here. We're going to bring out the other bishop, and this pawn structure, while it looks interesting now, it's not going to leave any real pressure in the future. In fact, it has a lot of holes over here, and you can see these diagonals are very weakened, even this diagonal over here, and we are going to have to take care of it. Now, I'm going to jump the knight in the center over here, just because after takes, we are going to take back, and we will have control of the center with the bishop on an outpost, sniping everywhere. This is a very common idea that is actually quite powerful. So now what we're going to do is we're going to finish our development with bishop to e7. We could have placed a bishop here as well, but here it really does not have any future. It's only looking onto two diagonals that are completely locked, and so we are not going to do that. Instead, now I'm going to push h5, and the reason I'm going to do that is because later on I'm going to want to castle alongside, but I want to also create a little bit of counterplay on the other side of the board. So what I'm going to do over here, because I see this diagonal is very weak and we will be able to deliver a check and an attack to the king, we're going to try to open the position a little bit, and after that maybe we can infiltrate with the queen and hopefully deliver a checkmate. Let's see if that's possible. Otherwise, we are going to take, and after they take back, we have a attack over here going on, which means that this rook, this pawn is pinned to the rook. So the pin has already come to life, the one that I showed you. So what I'm going to do now is they have made a very bad mistake, and you should never do this. Never castled on the side where your opponent is attacking, because now you can see I started an attack over there, and the king is now stuck. It's going to take very, very many moves in order for them to start being able to run onto the other side. And right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to slowly bring all my pieces. I have taken that, and they took my bishop, so I'm just going to take back, and after that we are going to bring all the other pieces to the party as well. Now I'm probably going to go there with the bishop, and next I'm going to try to get my queen out castle and bring all the rooks to the attack. This way I am going to be able to show you how to create an attack properly. So now I'm going to take a few of the squares away for the king to not escape. And if they take, I'm going to take back with the queen. Now the opponent is trying to rip open the center, which is actually a very, very nice idea, because when the center is locked, it's going to be easier for me to create an attack. So when an attack is forming, you oftentimes want to attack in the center. But I'm just going to take back and attack the knight. The problem is that the position is so open and the king is so unsafe, and I have told you, bring your king to safety, not to a place where it's very unsafe, because now, even though he's trying to create some counterplay, it's not going to be as effective as it would have been before. He has a few ideas with push, but that is not really going to bother us. We are going to be able to start a few new attacks quite soon, and let's see what he has done now. He brought the knight back, protecting the knight, which is quite a good move actually. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my rook up and bring my rook over to deliver a check. And now our opponent did the correct move. They defended the knight, and now they're attacking ours. What I'm going to do is I'm first going to give a check, because this is a forcing move. Now they have to make a move. They have to make a decision where they're moving. And they decided to block with the knight, which is a very, very big mistake, because now I'm simply going to take and deliver checkmate. We have defeated our first opponent. Let's get into the second game. 800 elo, we are going to strike with e4, take space in the center, and now we are going to bring out the knight, attacking even more space here. Now, I would instantly win the game if I take this pawn, but I need to make it educational, so I'm not going to take this pawn. This is the Damiano defense. I have made plenty of videos on this trap of why you can sacrifice the knight, but go search that up, watch that. Instead, I'm just going to develop all my pieces, take the center, and be a little bit more educational on this one. I don't want to end the game quick, okay? So I developed my bishop. You see I developed all my pieces. We have already secured a bunch of squares in the center. Next is our pawn that can actually attack the bishop now. And after they take, we are just going to take back in the center over here. Hopefully they take back. And after that, we are going to be able to take as well with our queen. And after we take with the queen, we have a very active queen in the center. We can develop our bishop, castle our king. And now, in such a position, we can even decide to castle it long side, which is a bit of a more aggressive move. Now, let's see. I'm going to wait with the castling, because I'm not sure. I'm actually wanting to wait to see where my opponent is trying to castle. And after they castle, I can then maybe castle on the opposite side and start an attack. Now my opponent has gone here, and we can see there are multiple possible squares where they can go with the knight. So I'm just going to take away from this square, and if he takes over here, as I said, we are going to have an active queen in the center with which we are going to formulate an attack. They have moved the knight. You see I am taking very, very long times to move, because now I'm actually looking at what my opponent is threatening. So they are threatening the knight, and you can also draw such arrows for yourself to see if anything else is attacked. Now only the bishop is under attack, so I'm just going to slide it back over here, and that is going to hopefully be enough. Let's see what the opponent does. They could have other plans like this, but I'm not worried, because my pawn can come to the attack, can come to the defense. Also, if they go here, I cannot kick them right away immediately, because as we've talked before, check if your pieces are undefended, because that would leave my piece undefended. He goes here, I push, and that leaves my piece undefended right away. We do not want that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this move h3. This is in preparation and not allowing for them to go knight to g4. And now after takes, they attack my bishop. I do not want to get rid of my bishop right away. I'm just going to move it back to a square that is good. This is very important. Always keep your pieces active, and now we can decide to castle a specific side. Maybe the opponent castles, but that isn't possible. But what I'm trying to say is that maybe he wants to castle, which is why he is taking so long to do so. What I'm going to do now is I'm simply going to move my queen up one square, connecting it with the bishop. That ensures that they are connected and that it is possible for them to cooperate in the future. Now what I'm going to do here is I would like to attack the queen with my knight, but that leaves the pawn unprotected. So first let's play this, and after that we're going to jump in with the knight attacking the queen. We have to be a little bit careful because on this side we cannot castle anymore. We have done too many holes in this pawn structure, so instead we should castle longside. And I'm taking a second to see what my opponent is doing. Right away I can see that they are attacking this pawn over here with the queen, so I'm just going to castle and try to defend it. Now if there was a bishop, a dark bishop, so his bishop, I would not castle over there to not hang checkmate. But now since the queen is the only piece attacking that, I can defend it with my king, and if he takes I would be in no trouble. So he has attacked our knight over here with the bishop, but I'm not concerned about that very much because we will simply be able to later on just recapture with the bishop, and that is going to be fine. Instead what I want to do is I want to start a little bit of a pawn break, pawn storm, and bring the pawns a little bit closer to the opponent's king. That way we are going to be able to slowly build up an attack without risking too much. Because the pawns, yes, they cannot any time move backwards, so they're going to be forever stuck here. But this is not that bad of a pawn structure, especially since I have no king here. I will be able to start pushing the pawns and creating an attack. Now he's attacking my bishop, and I do not really want to trade this right here. Instead, what I'm going to do, I'm going to move the bishop back one square, and hopefully we can start an attack on that side of the board. We can see we may have a capture over there. Maybe we can bring our queen to the party, and that could be very powerful for us at the end of the day. Now he's attacking this, and first I'm going to address this issue, and I'm going to protect it with my bishop because I do not want him to capture any pawns and destroy my pawn structure over here. There may have been a tactic where I can take over there, and then after he takes here we attack with the queen and we are a little bit more aggressive. Maybe that would have worked out, but it's better to be safe and clinical than not. Okay, so the opponent puts further pressure over there, but now I'm simply going to kick out the queen, not allow her to do too many attacks. So if they take with the queen, obviously I take with the bishop, and that is instantly losing. And I have deviated the queen from the attack, so we are going to go over there and start our own attack, okay? So the opponent took, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to be a little bit more aggressive. I'm going to actually leave the rook hanging, and after they go here, I'm going to then try to attack with my bishop slowly. So they captured the rook. I'm going to go over here, trying to start an even stronger attack, arguing that his attack is not really that powerful. And over here, my opponent has pushed, and I delivered checkmate. So you see, just to analyze really quickly, we have pushed everything. We should have taken over here, as I said, in the Damiano defense, but instead I decided to develop everything. We then slowly decided where we want to castle. I waited a little bit out because I knew my opponent would probably not castle on that side of the board, but I would hesitate to castle on this side because I do not want to let him start a pawn attack. So we attacked the queen, we consolidated everything, we brought everything over here, we took the pawn, we took the risk as well. So this was a very risky attack, but in the end it worked out and we delivered checkmate. Now for our third game, we're playing with the black pieces as well against a 900 rated opponent. So the last opponent I think was rated 820, maybe something like that. So here I'm deciding to fight in the center with this specific opening. and my opponent just develops the knight. I'm going to develop my knight, and while the Sicilian is not a good opening that you should learn, I want to show you a different setup where we're going to fight for the center another way. So we are just going to capture, and after that we strike at the center, attacking the bishop, securing a little bit more of the center. So now you can see this is a very odd way to play, but we also have the same amount of center taken as the opponent. So we're just going to develop our bishop on the fianchetto over here. This is the fianchetto structure where the bishop is safer, and if we castle over here, we are just going to be able to have a way safer formation due to the bishop aligning with the king in this specific structure. So just to make sure really quickly, so I decided to not take with the knight here, because first of all I want to keep my pawn defended with the, and another pawn is the best at doing so, and second of all, if I take with the knight, he's going to deliver a check with the rook, and that is going to be a little bit more uncomfortable for me. So instead he decided to develop the bishop attacking the knight, but instead of pushing the bishop out, because that leaves this diagonal open, I decide to go rook to e8, defending this right away, and if a trade would happen, that would not hinder me in any way to my position. So now I'm kicking out the bishop, forcing it to make a decision. Does it go back, or does it finally take the knight? So we decided to took, and now after we take back, likely we're going to see a trade over here of rooks as well. We have a queen that is very active in the center, and we are doing good. So now he has brought the rook over. I'm just going to bring out the bishop, pinning the knight to the king, and we have talked about the pin already. And now we can see that he has done a very specific thing, which I'm telling you, you should not do. My opponent has just played the move in 2 seconds, and this is why I've been telling you, think about what you're doing. They have just sacrificed the knight for nothing. We are able to take, and now if they ever trade, we are going to be able to do this. Now I'm trying to look for a tactic here, okay? Since this pin and this relation over here, I'm just going to take. He does not want to, he doesn't really want to hurt the pawn structure. So if he would have taken with the queen, I would have been able to take over there, and the game would have been over. Instead, I'm just going to go here, since he correctly took with the rook, and now I'm forcing a trade, because otherwise I'm going to be able to take that up there, and it's going to be checkmate. So now, after takes, he likely takes back with the rook, and my queen is attacked. Very important, always look out for what is being attacked. I would like to attack this pawn over here, but again, I'm looking out and I see this square is under attack. So I'm just going to go over here, attacking this pawn instead. Creating threats is often very important. Now, do I want to take right away? No, because I give a little bit of attention to my opponent to see what he's trying to do. He's likely trying to infiltrate over here, deliver a check, and after trade he's infiltrated with the queen. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to attack the rook instead of taking over here, because this square is protected now by the, and if I move the queen is not going to protect that square anymore, okay? So he tried to infiltrate with the rook over here, but he's not really attacking anything. You see, I am always on the lookout, but he didn't really attack anything. So I'm just going to take over here with the bishop. Taking more pawns is safe when you have looked out if it's safe, okay? So always try to be very precautious with the moves that you're doing. Keeping solid is often more important, and trying to not losing is often more important than looking for very fancy attacks. Just try to keep everything very solid, and in lower elos your opponent is just going to crumble apart, and at some point you're going to have a significant advantage. Like you see over here, my opponent only took 5 seconds to move, and he has immediately blundered the queen. I'm just going to take the queen, and he was looking for an attack, but as I've told you, always try to look if the squares are defended. Always try to look every single direction when you make a move. You can even, when you're playing a slower time control like classical, but even in rapid you can do so, just slow down a little bit, look at the square you're trying to move to, and literally draw all directions, because then you're going to be able to see if anything is attacked. And you can see, am I attacked by anything? And yes, the bishop is in the direction. We're going to play one more game. So now we are playing a 908 opponent. So I'm going to play the Sicilian defense once again. And to display a new structure for you, I'm going to develop my knight. Wow, they play the Rossolimo, so they have a little bit of opening knowledge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just consolidate this pawn over here to make sure that my control is in the center is quite good. Now, I do not want you to replicate this opening, okay? I'm just showcasing to you different patterns and different ways to occupy the center and develop your pieces. But the simplest way for you to develop your pieces is to play e4, e5, d4, d5, and just develop your pieces to the usual squares, okay? And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do next game to showcase it even better to you. So I'm getting attacked. I just decided to take because my bishop wasn't really as strong in this specific structure. I couldn't really develop. You can see the opponent is trying to consolidate on the light squares, so I decided to trade my light squared bishop, as when the pawns are on light squares it's going to be way more difficult for my bishop to really move. So now my opponent is making the decision whether to take with the pawn or with the queen. The queen is obviously the better choice here, and they finally decided to take as well. So I'm just going to develop my knight, continue with castling, and after that I'm going to bring out my pieces. On the next move, if he decides not to push, I'm going to even take more space in the center before castling, because that is really going to secure this really beautiful structure that is quite difficult for the opponent to break through. Now what we need to focus on is defending this queenside attack that is building up right now, but from what I'm seeing right now, the attack has not yet reached its powerful way, so I'm just going to wait. If they push, I'm just going to be able to bring the knight over here and then plant it on a very beautiful square where it's controlling a lot of squares in the board. And that happens, okay? He pushed, and I'm already attacking this pawn over here. I'm also threatening to go knight here, and this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to plant my knight over here. I have various plans that I can do with the knight, and he has decided to push this pawn. Now you can see the opponent starts panicking at some point. He pushed a random pawn that doesn't really make any sense. I'm just going to take this pawn, attacking the knight at the same time, which is already a very good move for me, because I'm already taking the initiative over. Likely the opponent is now going to move the knight. He's right now trying to decide where he can move this knight, and you can see this square is not available because of his own piece, and this square as well, and this square as well. So he only has 1, 2, 3, 4 squares remaining, and you can see, okay, this square, it can be taken two ways. This square, it can be taken multiple ways, but with the pawn it's the best. And this square is the only safe square, because over here I would just right away attack it with the queen. So he likely is going to go back, and after he goes back, we are going to see what we do. So my opponent decided to let the clock run out. Instead, we can see that we have a very powerful position. If you would have gone here, I would have just bring the bishop back, start an attack on that side of the board, because I do not want to trade my good knight against his bad knight that doesn't really have a future. That is the explanation here. And we can see we have gotten a very powerful position by just castling our king to safety, developing our pieces, taking the center, and not blundering everything. Doesn't this sound like the exact thing that we have talked about? Let's jump into the next game. Now our 950 rated opponent, nearly 1000, plays e4. I'm going to play e5 over here, and then we are going to see what the opponent does. Okay, so our opponent developed the knight, we are going to develop ours. Now he's playing the Italian game, and I'm just going to develop the knight over here. Then he tries to prepare this move, so I'm just going to go over here and not allow him to do so. He's attacking my knight, okay? And after that we are going to see what he does. Maybe push another time, and then we're gonna have to attack the bishop. And after we attack the bishop over here, the bishop will likely slide back, or it will sacrifice itself, okay? Let's see what the opponent is planning. So he sacrificed the bishop. I meant to go over here, I misclicked, but this is going to make things a little bit more educational and interesting, I guess, because a little worse position is going to allow me to teach you even better. So my opponent gives a check. I'm just going to push this pawn over here, blocking the check, attacking the knight, though the knight cannot be taken yet because of the pin. Yes, we have learned this. So he can leave the knight a little bit longer over there. Does he want to? I am not sure. I don't think it's that favorable for him if he does. The problem with this position is that we have not managed to bring the king to safety. So what do we have to do? Consolidate for it. Try to bring the king to safety another way. Castling was not successful since he sacrificed, but this sacrifice, we're going to say, okay, your sacrifice has given us material, but now we need to make up for it with the king safety, okay? That is the reason for the sacrifice, and something that we should have in mind, okay? Now, in order to bring the king to safety, now we developed a bishop first. We have several ways where we could potentially bring the king over here and try to bring the rook out a specific way. Maybe even go something like this to first attack the knight. Don't forget about the pin. Then later on push, go over here, go over there. So now I'm just going to slide out of the way of the pin, and if our opponent takes his time, I'm sure he's not going to forget this. Okay, so as you see, take your time and you're going to notice things, okay? So my opponent did not hang that, and instead I'm going to try to maneuver the right way. I said I'm going to bring my king to safety and use this open file for the rook to attack. You can see the bishop is also forming an attack. Later on we could bring other pieces to the fight as well, and we also have to improve our bad pieces. We can see our knight over here is quite bad, which is very problematic, and we will have to improve it in the future. Now he's doing a great job at developing as well, so let's just continue with our plan since he's not hindering it, and just continue with the development. So I'm asking my opponent, what is the knight really doing there? Okay, if he goes here, I might just trade it off, and after that, what do you really got? Okay, so now I'm just going to try to break open the position with this move a6. So then after he takes, I'm going to be able to take back and slowly bring back my knight into the game. I'm also planning to play something like queen to d7, attacking both pawns, which would have been an alternative to our last move. Now my opponent decided to go over here. I'm always drawing out everything, and we can see that our opponent isn't really doing much, okay? I'm just going to take over here because later that is going to allow my knight to get back into the game. If he trades, I can just take back with the rook or with the queen. So he decides to attack our knight instead. We are just going to go here, improve our knight. We can bring it to the center. We are also threatening the bishop, though it can just be taken. He is ruining the pawn structure a little bit, leaving a pawn island in the center of the board, which is quite problematic at times. So our opponent has blundered a very specific move, and it is this knight right here. You can see moving fast is not going to lead you anywhere, and playing like this definitely isn't the right play. So while he has done correctly to play slowly in the beginning, he's now getting impatient and losing, and let's see what he does. So now he is losing even more material as he is moving more faster and beginning to panic. So we're just going to capture, and this is going to bring us to the mighty rating of 1000 elo. We're just going to bring the queen, slowly improve everything. We're just going to give up that pawn, which doesn't really matter that much for us. Let's just attack that pawn instead, and our opponent has resigned. Congratulations, you are 1000 elo. If you liked this video, don't forget to leave a comment and tell me what you liked about it and whether or not you were able to improve. And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. See you next time.